before we clean everything, we're going to use the TransGo kit, and reading the directions, we have some holes we're going to drill out in this plate. The divider plate will basically follow their directions on these holes. They give you sizes to enlarge it to, so we'll just follow the directions and drill out those holes before we clean it. That way we can clean all the shavings and everything off. There also is another set of directions for the top part of the valve body, and what we have to do is basically file a notch, and we also have to, I believe, drill a hole. Yes, it's on the next page. So we're going to go ahead and follow these directions and drill the hole, and they give you an alignment plate to do it. So you mount up this plate, you drill the hole, you put a spacer on, given a 7/16 depth, and basically that's it. A couple other little tiny ones we got to poke through in here. Step by step, it's a nice set of directions, so when you get the kit or if you use it, you can read that up. I'll just show you the holes after I'm done with drilling and cleaning. Okay, everything's cleaned up. I left some of the valves and everything. Everything stayed pretty clean. There's no real junk on it, so we're just going to leave it alone. Kind of wipe them down as needed, keep them wet with transmission fluid. I went ahead and cleaned the valve body castings and everything, so we're just starting to put this back together. So we'll just go back together piece by piece. So we have the valve body all cleaned up. Here's the upper half of the body. We did grind this notch in this bore per the instructions. We also drilled out this wall. You can see here it's notched out. And there was also a restrictive orifice right here that we drilled out in this channel per the directions. So what we're going to do now is basically refit the shift valve. Here's the modified new manual shift valve. They're all manual valve, but this is what's considered a manual valve. This is the new design that comes with the kit. So what we have to do is set the park lever, put the park lever back in there, get this lined up, and basically they want us to check to make sure that this edge of the valve just seats into this first wall, or the third wall here. So we'll do that, check out that fitting, and then if we have to, we got to bend the tab on there. Not really too crazy, but it's got to be checked. So we'll do that first. So we'll get the arm, get the body and the valve, get this put in position. I'll set this back in here. Well, they want us to check this in the park position, so what we'll do is we're going to have to get this valve put in. We're also going to have to get the park or the detent ball and spring back in here. That way we can definitely get the positioning of the park position on the valve body here. So we'll get the mumbly peg, which is a cool little tool they give you. It's neat, it's got a recess in there for the ball. Put the ball in front of the spring, and you got to compress the spring and the ball. What you do is you get that going, set it up just like that, and we have to drop this in position here. Just kind of line everything up and give it a quick punch. And then we can shake out that peg. One of the positions, there we go. So we'll put it in park, which park is going to be in that position right there. And let's see, we should be, let's position this in the valve body. That goes that way. The accumulator's over there. Just gonna double check that. Yes, that is the park position. So in the park position, I don't know if you'll be able to see this on camera, probably not. But inside this land right here, we want to make sure that that valve is the edge of that valve is right at the edge of that port per the directions. It says the tapered land should be flush with the right edge of partition A. So that being partition A, that land should be flush, which it is not. It also states 30 thousandths from flush either way is okay. So 30 thousandths from flush, that is definitely less than 30 thousandths. So I'm going to leave it alone. There's no adjustment needed. So we'll take this back apart. Pop the ball and spring out of there. We'll set this back aside. And we'll pop this out. So like I said, everything here still has transmission fluid all over it as far as the valves and everything. I cleaned up the plates and the transfer or the valve bodies themselves, so I'm not really worried about them being awfully dirty. We're just going to go ahead and reassemble it. Everything's pretty clean. I'll just give the check balls a wipe down with like a paper towel. I do have some nice body cloths that typically don't leave any lint, so we'll use one of these. And we'll go ahead and per the directions we'll get the check valves installed, or check balls installed, and I'll show you that. Okay, as per the directions, we're putting all the check valves back in here. We've got the 1/4" balls here. We got 1, 2, 3, 4 of them. There was 5 in this port here. There used to be 1. There is also the 11/32 check ball in this larger slot. The 1/4" ball that was there is being discarded as per the directions for the 1 to 2 shift. I personally like firm shifts on a transmission, so they are recommending to remove this for the firmest hot rod 1 to 2 shift. So we're going to take that and leave that one out. So the check balls are in. I'm going to give this plate a quick wipe down, make sure there's nothing on the top, and then we're going to put this back onto the valve body. And definitely want to make sure we're going the right way. We want that over there. So those two should be right about there. 2, 3. Right there. So we'll start dropping all the screws back in. Alright, if you're like me, I'll tend to forget which ones the filter uses, so you just kind of have to play around with the screws and figure out which one the filter used to take. And I think it's these 3 offset ones. There's 2 here. There's this big port, which is the intake for the fluid, I do believe it's these 3 screws that are, usually it's 2 in line and 1 just kind of on a little bit of an angle. So I do believe these are the screws for the filter. So we'll move these around. Okay, here all the check balls rattling around in there. So we're good to go. So now we'll just have to reinstall the valves and reprogram them with the different spring rates. I'll also start putting the valves in. I'll take some of the tranny fluid that I took out of it in a little paint, spray paint top, soak the valve in and drop it in. So we'll start with that one. Now we're going to move on to the pressure regulator valve. So this whole assembly is right here. We're going to install this guy. Get some oil transmission fluid on there. Back into its bore. Okay. Now, per the kit, I'm going to open up this bag, and this has a shim and spring kit to it. So, we'll get this going first. So here we got an orange spring, and a regular plain spring. We've got a shim. It says to install the shim and then install the spring seat. It looks like it's pointing that direction. So get that mounted there. Spring seat. Now it shows to use an inner plane like this and an outer orange like that. Now that setup replaces this original spring, which that spring is going to be reused from the converter valve, and then we have to put this assembly back together. Now this is kind of a tough one to do because you kind of have to push it and put both screws in, line up both springs, and do it all at once. So we'll get that going. Before you tighten it, put the top one on. So that's that one. Okay. So on the throttle valve assembly, which is this guy right here, we have a choice between either the pink or yellow spring. The kit says to install the yellow or pink throttle valve spring that is the same diameter as the original spring. So I'll take the original spring out and kind of match it up diameter wise, which it matches the yellow one to me better than it does. Actually, it does match up the pink one better. Look at that. So original diameter, I'm going to say is the pink style. We'll make sure it fits on there, which it does. The yellow one does not. So we'll discard the yellow one, back to the kit. We'll install the pink one. Nothing gets done with that. This valve got ground down, and the stem was a lot longer. You can see I kind of have grind marks on there. Ground it down, and that stem tip from this land needs to be 9/32 or 2.281. So I already did that, and I chamfered it. So we're going to install that back together, and we'll put that back into its bore. The spring. Okay. Also reinstall the stopper and snug this up. Okay, because this thing is a 67 model year, or 66 transmission. We're skipping the page for the governor valve, where we grind the land down. Basically it says if your governor valve looks like this shape, like this one here, we're skipping this step of this shift kit. The other style has like a groove cut in this large land, and what you do is you grind the inner one down. So we're skipping this, and all we're doing is reassembling all our governor stuff back to the way it was. Now there's nothing that goes up atop here other than the cover plate, so I'm just going to pour a little bit of transmission fluid down in there to soak it, recover it. Okay, last thing to go in is the manual valve. Make sure it's smooth, which it is. And then we have to get our shift selector and spring detent ball. Get that ball in there with the spring. Again with this cool little peg. Put it up right against the ball. Set it right there. Get your selector. Quick little pop. Rotate it there. Shake out the peg. Throw it back in park. And then get our kick down back up in there. I did go ahead and clean all the rust off of those shafts on this one and the gear selector shaft, so we can get this thing put back together a lot easier. Slide that up into place. Before it goes all the way up, it's got to go underneath that screw stop, and between that and the throttle valve right there. So once that's in position again, you can go ahead and put the washer back on it. And the E-clip. And there you have it. Valve body's fully reassembled. It's ready to go back into the transmission. The pressure regulator adjustment here is this plate with that spring. We need to get a 3/16 Allen in there, and basically this plate that's in this channel here has to be flush with the outer housing. That is listed here on the shift kit as the heavy duty car truck / street strip. It says to leave flush. Competition and race car only, they want you to adjust it in 4 turns from flush. I have had this adjusted up on some cars, and let me tell you, it is harsh. I will suggest definitely leaving it flush. It's not a big deal, so I'm just going to back this down. So it's flush right there. Let's just make sure that it's alright, so that's just off of flush. Right about there. Okay, so that is the only adjustment that we had to do on that.